Welcome, Traceable designers. Today we're making the Ornate connector panel. This is the center panel converted into a connector panel. We can use that on the arch style, or it's perfectly compatible with the straight or the Ornate style Lambrequin. The Traceable Designer Multi-Style Lambrequin kit includes the Ornate style center panel. So I'm using two separate fabrics, one with a solid on the back and then a print on the front. So just get rid of all of your wrinkles from your fabric. This is an odd shape because I'm using a scrap piece. So I just need to add enough height so that will fold over the rod and connect with the Velcro connectors. So I'm adding about roughly 4 inches so that I have plenty of height. Then pull out your fusible fabric backing and cut it to size. Make sure that it does not extend past the edges. Then use a medium-high heat with a dry iron, a sweeping motion, and then continue until you've completely fused the backing. Then once that is 100% cooled, you'll be able to peel that off. Then just reserve that piece of paper for when you attach trim. Next, we're going to completely cover the exposed glue with a piece of lining. Then you'll start in the middle of your fabric and with a sweeping motion out toward the sides, moving slowly without holding your iron in one spot. Just completely adhere the lining to the back of your panel. So you'll use a medium-high heat, dry iron, and continue until that's completely fused in place. Okay, as you can see, my lining extended past my fabric edges, so I'm folding this in half, and then I'm going to line everything up and then pin it to secure it so it doesn't move when I'm tracing. So you want to make sure that your shape is perfect and even on all sides. So feel for the upper part of the glue. I'm marking down 3 inches for the positioning line for the top edge of my design form for adding the height. And then I am using the 18-inch size for my base. Make sure that it's all covered by the glue before you start to trace. So then you just trace on the outside edge and then around underneath and then ending at the curve, and then you'll want to raise your design form to finish tracing the height of the panel. To cut out your panel, just put the folded edge facing you and then just simply follow along carefully, cutting along your traced line until you've completely removed the panel. You'll do the curved lower edge, then up the side, and then just finish by cutting straight across the top. Then just open your panel and run an iron across it to flatten. Now we're going to make the contrast fabric, the top layer, but we want to make sure that we've positioned the flower where we want it perfectly in the center, and that's what I plan to do. So I want to make sure that based on the smallest sizing line, when I position that over my flower and I flip it both ways, it's going to fall in the center. So that's how I'm going to size the fabric section. So then just fold it in half and hold the sizing line over the flower or over where you would like your print to be. Make sure it's sized properly. Then you'll just cut your fabric so that you have a little margin and then cut off plenty of excess on top. And then as you did with the base, just add your fusible fabric backing. Mine was a little short, so just add a second strip if you need to across the top. Then for my contrast fabric, I'm not adding lining because this will be fused to the top of my base. Now I'm using the 16-inch line for this, so it's a little bit smaller. I'm just tracing the same way that I did the base. The only difference is I do not have lining on this piece because it will be fused. You'll notice I did not measure the top. It doesn't matter how tall it is because we will be positioning and then just cutting that section off once it's been fused together. So now just add your pin so that it's held securely, and then again follow your traced line to cut out your contrast panel. So you're going to position your top layer over your bottom layer. Make sure your edges are very even. You can at this point remove some width if you would like. This looks like it's pretty well sized. So then just remove the paper from the back. If you want to adjust your size, you can do that now, and then pull out a tape measure again and measure around the sides. You want to make sure everything is nice and even on both sides before you begin to fuse this down. Now when you do fuse this panel in place, you want to make sure it doesn't move. So you're going to start in the center with a sweeping motion out toward the side. I used an indoor-outdoor fabric, so it's a little bit heavier. This will take a little longer for this to fuse. You can use a piece of lining if you would like to cover this so that it doesn't burn your fabric. Make sure you don't go above the top edge. Then just turn it over and cut off that excess. You didn't want to fuse that to your ironing board, so once that's gone, then you can finish fusing the top. Now to attach trim, I'm using a 3/8 inch GIMP trim. I'm using two different designs, and I'm also using glue. I'm using Unique Stitch. It's a great glue. It's a no-sew glue, so it dries clear. It's easy to work with. It doesn't continue releasing from the tube once you've stopped gluing. So I'm doing the inside first, so I'm just following along my inside edge and then around the corner just a little bit because we're going to move the trim down and then do the curved edge. So I've extended a bit above for putting that behind. Then you can pull that trim a little bit taut to make it super straight, and then hold your finger while you do that corner and let that corner dry before you continue to move on. You want a nice pronounced corner. Then just continue with your glue, following the shape, and make sure everything's nice and straight. This glue does dry clear, so that the white will disappear. And then just continue all the way around, and then once you've finished, you'll secure your ends behind the back of the panel, and then move on to your outer edge trim. Follow the exact same process for the outer edge trim, making sure that that is nice and straight, so you'll secure behind the back. Follow along and make sure you're double checking as you go to make sure it's nice and even. Okay, now that my trim is completely dry, I'm ready to prepare the panel for hanging. So you're going to fold that over because you're going to use Velcro connectors to hold this in place with your panels, whether you're putting it over two side panels or between center panels. So pull out your Velcro connectors from your Valance kit, and then we're going to be attaching those using fusible backing. You will need to make sure they're positioned properly. So cut sections of fusible backing to iron in place. Once that has cooled, you'll remove the paper to expose the glue. That way, when you do position the stick-on Velcro over top of the tape, it will hold securely when you're moving the panel or detaching it or pulling the Velcro sections apart. Okay, once you've made your side panels, you'll be ready to hang your beautiful new Lambrequin Valance. Thank you for joining me, Traceable Designers, and remember, you can always make your mark with Traceable Designer.